Have you finished writing your novel but realized that you're 5, 10, or maybe 20,000 words over the acceptable limit? Well, step 1, take a deep breath. Step 2, let's get to business shortening your writing with 9 tips I have for you. Hey guys, Nour here, and welcome back to my channel! For those visiting for the first time, hello! I'm a fantasy author and my novel Divinity Falling was published last October. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon to get notified of my weekly writing advice videos and occasional funny writing skits. Today we're talking all about shortening your writing if you're an overwriter. 2 weeks ago I did a video all about lengthening your writing if you're an overwriter. So if you feel like you fit into that category, be sure to check out that video. I'll leave that in the card up here. Now, overwriters tend to get carried away with their story world and characters, and they end up going over the expected word count limit. This can be a problem, but that's okay because that's why we edit our novels. Tip number 1, if your story is too long, start by cutting out filler words and sentences. Filler words can be unnecessary things like just, very, up or down, begin or start, and so on. An easy tell that certain words are filler is if you remove them and the sentence's meaning doesn't change. For a long list of words to watch out for in your writing, check out the video in the card here. Filler sentences are also those that you can remove and the story won't change or be affected. Basically, go through your story with a fine-tooth comb and remove anything that doesn't have a purpose. Tip number 2, another way to shorten your writing is to remove a lot of adverbs. Adverbs are usually those that end with "ly", like sadly, happily, and dangerously. Adverbs are often used to describe things, but they aren't necessary most of the time. I want to say that 90% of the time, they can be removed. And the great thing about removing them is that they will make the story shorter. For example, "she whispered quietly" can be shortened to "she whispered". Not only does this make the sentence shorter by one word, but it also improves the quality of your writing. Because you don't need to say that she whispered quietly. Whispered already implies that it's quiet. Similarly, you don't need to say that she stomped angrily, because stomped is already associated with anger. And even though you're only removing a single word, these add up over the length of your novel. Tip number 3, just like with adverbs, you'll want to remove some adjectives. Now, adjectives are good, and the reason I say to remove some of them but not all of them is because they are great, but in moderation. You want to describe things, but you never want to overdo it. For instance, take a look at this sentence. He sat by the big, beautiful, old tarnished cabinet. There are 4 adjectives here, and they're not all necessary. A simple "he sat by the tarnished cabinet" is good enough to create an image in our mind, since tarnished is already associated with old things. And we probably don't need to know that the cabinet is big or beautiful, unless the cabinet plays a central role in the story. So, things like that can be cut out. Tip number 4, anytime you see repetitions, remove them. I'm talking repetitions of words, repetitions of sentences, repetitions of points. We don't need to be told the same point twice. If you explain something once, the reader will remember it, so don't explain it again. If you said a certain phrase, don't repeat it again for a while. For example, "How dare you talk to me," I said. "Please, let me explain," he said. "How dare you talk to me?" This repetition can be solved with a simple "no", which also adds tension to the scene. Tip number 5, fix a lot of passive voice sentences. "I watched the dance floor come to life" becomes "the dance floor came to life", which is an active sentence with 2 words less than its passive counterpart. There's no reason to say "I watched" when the dance floor is coming to life on its own. It is already alive, so don't make it passive. Here's another example. "I heard the baby cried" becomes "the baby cried". The baby crying is already active, but when you write "I heard the baby cry", the baby becomes passive. So, in changing passive voice into active voice sentences, you improve the quality of your writing and decrease your word count. Tip number 6, when it comes to shortening your writing, nothing is saved from the delete button. And that includes unnecessary scenes, characters, and dialogue. It can be hard to remove things that you put so much time and effort into writing, but don't be selfish. This is for the betterment of your story and the reader's experience. How can you tell a character, scene, or dialogue needs to be removed? If it doesn't have purpose in the story. Much like with removing filler words, analyze these elements to see if removing them changes the story. And if no change occurs, then they had no purpose. This way, you could cut out boring small talk between characters, entire scenes that serve no purpose, and characters that show up once, do nothing, and then never show up again. It's hard, but you could do it! One trick I learned over the years is to create a separate document where I save all the things I delete from my story. This way, I technically still have all these unnecessary things should I really need them back. But can I tell you a secret? I never need them back. Tip number 7. Remove all weak subplots. Again, these are the scenes that don't add purpose. So, if your characters fight out of the blue over a missing chocolate bar and it's really out of character for them to do that and you only wrote it because you felt like it, then remove it. It just doesn't add value to the story. Tip number 8. Don't overexplain. For instance, if you wrote a funny line into your story but felt worried that readers won't get the joke, then either write a better joke or be confident enough that most readers will get it. If you have to explain a joke, you lose the punchline. Of course, this applies to everything, not just funny lines. Over-explaining pulls readers out of the story and ruins the point you were trying to make in the first place. Last but not least, tip number 9. Use powerful nouns and verbs to create stronger descriptions that are short. This goes back to show, don't tell. Here's an example. Instead of writing, "She was extremely cold," write, "She shivered." It creates a vivid image without using as many words. Also, did you notice that we removed an adverb in doing so? So, those are my tips for you. While removing one word or one sentence might seem like nothing, they really do add up. You'd be surprised how many times you've used the same word you're looking to cut out of your story. When I edit my stories, I often find the same word over 200 times. That's a lot! So definitely go through your story with these tips in mind and keep on cutting the unnecessary stuff out. It might feel bad or even boring at times, but that's what good writers do, so be a good writer. But I'm curious, if you're an overwriter, what is one thing you find you need to cut from your story the most? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. I put out weekly writing advice videos that will take your story to the next level. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day and to chat with me. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne and Lori B from my shoutouts here over on Patreon, as well as all my amazing patrons. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support. And remember, Nour for president!